I will now call to order the Town of Hilton Head Island Design Review Board meeting for Tuesday, March 8th, 2022. Teresa, are we in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act?
Yes, ma'am, we are.
Thank you. Could you please call roll?
Certainly. Mr. Brown,
Here.
Miss Lippert,
Here.
Mr. Karstens,
Here.
Mr. Bassett,
Here.
Mr. Molesky,
Here.
Miss Foss.
Here. We'll now move on to the approval of the agenda. Does staff have any changes to the agenda?
No, ma'am, not at this time.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move for
I'll make a
approval.
motion.
I think
Second.
Mr. Brown was first, or he seconds it. We're good. Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passes by a vote of 6. Now we'll move to the approval of the minutes. Board members, do you have any changes to the minutes of February 22nd, 2022? If there are none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 22nd, 2022?
Madam Chair, I move for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion passes by a vote of 6. Teresa, do we have any appearances by citizens?
Madam Chair, we do not have any appearance by citizens at this time. Citizens were provided the opportunity to give public comment on the agenda items during the meeting. However, there were no requests to do so. Additionally, citizens could submit public comments electronically via the Open Town Hall portal, and those comments were provided to the board for review and made part of the official record. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to old business, alteration addition, Spinnaker Building, DRB 00038422022. I have a staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based on legal advice, the town's legal advice, the applicant does not have standing to make this request. On all DRB applications, there is an item where you have to check, are there recorded private covenants, quote, are there recorded private covenants and or restrictions that are contrary or conflict with or prohibit the proposed request, close quotes. It was after a review of the general deed, the master deed, legal advice was that they didn't have a standing to make that request. So as such, there is nothing for you all to review.
Thank you, Chris. We will move on to new business, a new development final, Spanish Wells Office Warehouse, DRB 0000497-2022. Ms. Lippert is recusing herself. Is that correct, Ms. Lippert?
Correct.
Thank you. And we'll now move on to staff presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, on the far, the site is outlined in red. On the far right, you can see sort of running diagonally is the Cross Island Parkway. The next street over towards the site is Spanish Wells Road. And there's a church in this location here with parking here as well as here. The proposed side of the building is right in here. Okay, we're going to look at some cut sheets provided by the applicant for the light fixtures around the building. They are the appropriate color and meet the 3000 Kelvin requirements. This is the color board that was available for your review outside Town Hall. proposed grading plan. I'm sorry, this is the demolition plan. My apologies. So this section of the parking lot will be demolished. And this is the overall site plan. Again, the building right here with the parking and the existing church building is located right here. Tree protection and removal plan. This is sewer and water line. Grading. And the proposed landscape plan. Footprint of the building. Roof plan. Elevations of the building. The rear elevation backs up to an existing undeveloped lot. And just remember that because of the zoning, there is no buffer requirement between these two parcels. So this is the side that faces the church down here at the bottom, the parking lot elevation. Again, a colored rendering.
Waiting room or, because it's so important.
Section through the building. Wall sections. The AC units are in the back of the building. Let me scroll up. So the AC units are located in alcoves here on the back of the building. So this is a wall section illustrating that along with the screening. Construction details. And that concludes staff presentation.
Thank you, staff. We have the applicant available.
I'm here, Jason with Court Atkins, and Ken is here as well, the landscape architect.
Thank you. You have 10 minutes to present your case.
All right, thank you, Chris. Appreciate the staff report. Just sort of going through the comments from the conceptual review. One of the comments that they wanted us to, the board wanted us to address was the rear elevation where we were showing pre-engineered metal building panel. We definitely went with the board's recommendation and changed that to a stucco veneer to match the rest of the building. So we've got stucco veneer on the rear with the trim, as well as score lines and downspouts to help break up the rear sort of service side of the building. We also, one of the comments was also to connect, as far as a site comment, to connect the front of our building with the bike path that's out front, so that you'll see that sidewalk was added to the site plan there as well. Another comment was to restudy the roof overhangs, and we looked at both the gable ends and the rake end as well. So those gable ends do extend on all sides 2 feet past the building facade, and then on the rake side 1 foot each way as well. Just going through some of the staff comments. Chris, maybe if you could go to the rendered elevations. We just felt that we've tried to address all 4 sides of the building with consistent stucco and trim and downspouts and score lines. Feel that the roof form, we wanted to obviously get a sloped roof with a little bit of variation on the main elevation where the building bumps out, to give it a little bit of a variation to the roof line and in shade and shadow. But wanted to keep it also relatively simple and not overcomplicate the building for what it is. And really that's it. Unless you have any comments or questions, we'd certainly be happy to answer those.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. If you'll stand by, we'll go through the order and they'll ask questions. The board will. We'll start out with Mr. Bassett.
Yes, I guess my primary question would be related to the alcoves for the AC units. Is it necessary to have those hung, or was that an effort to break up that rear elevation some.
Right, so we, we can't have them in the setback behind the building. And then in relation to the spaces that they're located, getting those in, and also keeping the fact that we want to have the sloped roof on all four sides because of the side of the building. So the strategy was, again, to carve out a little alcove up above to keep them, within the building out of the setback, and then just, screen them appropriately with a screening material.
And then would it be practical to do that over the units at the end closest to Butterfly Road as well?
Yeah, we could. We did have a little bit of room there to put those on the ground. So that was the thought there. But if the board felt strongly about getting those up above those restrooms as well, we could certainly look at that. I'm not opposed to that.
I guess my biggest, and I think that's actually probably an effective solution for breaking up that rear line in some way, along with the gutter downspouts that, does that fairly effectively. I guess my biggest concern is that without the buffer requirement and with that rear facade being so, kind of uniform and straight lined, a little bit, lack of interest in the roof line and everything. Maybe adding them at the other end, depending on what other board members kind of feel on that, might be helpful in breaking that up some more.
Okay.
That was, I guess, my primary comment.
Thank you, Mr. Bassett. Mr. Karstens.
Yes, thank you for addressing the comments in regards to the landscape and the connection. I'm certainly liking where the roof lines are going and the fact that there is a step in the building. Knowing that Resurrection Church, the building does have those dormers with it, I think. I think the palette overall matches up well. I am with staff and their comments in regards to, I think considering it's an empty lot next door, I think that the additional plant material on the backside will help. I think staff comment, they talked about adding 6 hollies to the back. And then, beefing up around the dumpster, I think that's a relatively minor thing that I think would do well. And I don't know, I'm on board with the staff comments thus far. In regards to most of the architecture, it's tough. When it comes to the use and the location, I certainly think that there's an appropriate treatment here, and that the palette works. I think there's been some detail that's been added for the type and use of building that it is. So I'll be interested in hearing some other folks' comments, but I certainly think that the architecture has made a step forward since the last submittal, and I'm on board with how it's presented thus far. So I'll reserve any additional comments in response to any of my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karstens. We'll move to Mr. Mileski.
Hello. Thank you very much. I think definitely nice improvements to the elevations. So thanks for that. I have a question. Let's just say if we look at the parking lot elevation, the north elevation there, and it's fine where you're at right there. This is just a comment to consider. So I see all those gooseneck decorative lighting fixtures kind of placed at one elevation above the ground for the garage doors, and then obviously a different elevation for the signage. Just something to consider. I don't know if there's any merit, if those all aligned up with one another straight across, or maybe you guys have already did a little study on that and kind of liked how they're how they vary, and maybe that provides a little more interest, or I don't know if that makes it feel too busy. So just kind of a comment maybe for others to look at and consider. If we look at the east elevation there, and I'll kind of play off of staff's comments there. So we have that shed roof running there, but there really isn't anything that's bumped out. I would almost kind of expect there to be like maybe a little 12-inch bump out, and then that shed roof would be there over that bump out. Now, I don't know if the setbacks don't allow it, or just, get in the design, but that might be something to make that elevation be a little more appealing, just to, so it's not just a flat plane. It'll kind of create a little bit of depth and make that shed roof maybe have a little more purpose, would be one suggestion. And then up above in the gable, perhaps make that a window like the lower windows down below with the shutters on it, as opposed to having it feel more like a gable vent. That might be something to kind of break up all that stucco massing that's up there, again, as a suggestion. And other than that, that's the only comments that I really have to share. I don't know if Jason, if you have put any thought into what I said and landed on this is a different decision, or if there's any merit to that at all. But thanks for listening.
Yeah, certainly the light question, I went back and forth with the placement and even the types of light fixtures, but I did land on making them all uniform as far as the type of fixture on that elevation. I do like the variation of placing, and just also function for placing them just above the doors, just to make sure that we're getting some light at those overhead doorways, when they need it. So that was the thought there, of keeping bringing the lights down closer to the top of the overhead doors at those locations. On the east elevation, I'm not opposed to restudying that and sort of helping, as it was one of Chris' comments, and I forgot to bring it up when I was talking earlier, but to restudy that a bit with and try to bring down the scale of that elevation. I think I can do it with trim, and then the louvers, and I think I am right up against the setbacks. I don't know how much room I have to play with pushing the building in and out, but I think again with the louvers and the awning, the bracketed awning, and some additional trim or score work, I think I can help break that elevation down. So I'm definitely not opposed to taking another swing at that elevation. That would be fine.
Cool, thanks. I mean, it looks great though, so thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Molesky. Mr. Brown.
Good afternoon. I don't have any additional comments regarding the architectural sheets or the landscape plan. I have one question for Jason.
Yes, sir.
Was there any conversations about the parking? If there were some activities at the church during the week while the office warehouses were in use? Are you comfortable with the amount of parking it provided?
Yes, and over on the right-hand side, I believe that parking has been also added and redone for the church as well. But I could double check with the civil engineer, but I believe all the parking and all the parking counts and how it functions has been vetted and worked out.
Great, thank you. No additional comments.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I also agree that if you could find a way to bring the HVAC units that are on the ground in the west elevation to the rear elevation and space it out the same way as right there. Thank you. Space it out the same way as the right side and the middle piece are on the rear elevation. That would help break up that rear elevation and take a somewhat unsightly unit from the west elevation. I think that would help your rear and west elevations completely.
Sure.
I agree that the east elevation is out of human scale, and you've already acknowledged that you've got some ideas of how to figure it out. I really like how you switched the roof elevations so that when you're looking at the building from Spanish Wells, we get a lot of change in that elevation, and it looks nice. I heard and saw staff's recommendation that the roof in the middle gets raised up. I think that would be nice. It's not a sticking point for me. The view from the front elevation at a distance isn't that big because of the church being there, but it's something to think about. We brought up the gooseneck lights. I really personally like the way they're staggered above the signs versus the overhead doors. And vigorous plantings around the dumpster, especially when we're looking at a warehouse type facility where it's going to be used a lot. I completely agree with that. Let's see. I think that's it for my notes. Does the board have any further comments or questions? If not, could I get a motion on the application? I should ask Mr. Atkins first. Do you think it's possible to move the HVAC units to the rear elevation from the west elevation?
Already sketched it out in my drawings. So yes.
Perfect. All right. Now can I get a motion to approve the application? All right, I'm going to make a motion for Spanish Wells Office Warehouse DRB 000497-2022 to move the HVAC units that are on the ground on the west elevation to the rear elevation, raised to match the rest of them on that side. The east elevation is out of human scale, and we would like to see it come back for staff approval to bring that into better human scale. We would like to see vigorous plantings around the dumpster, staff approval. Staff could approve that. And just take a look at maybe rising the middle portion of the roof, but I would agree with staff approving that as well. Can we get a second? Or does anyone have an amendment? Mr. Atkins? Mr. Carr, sorry.
I'd just like to amend the motion to address for staff approval the landscape comments in regards to the understory trees in the rear of the building, the dumpster enclosure as noted by our chairwoman, and noting also the staff comments in regards to the stormwater, the Spartina within the stormwater detention, please.
Thank you, Mr. Carstens. So amended to my motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to second the motion.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Atkins.
Thank you.
All right, Teresa, can you please call roll?
Certainly. Mr. Brown,
Approval?
Mr. Molesky,
Approval.
Mr. Carstens,
Yes.
Mr. Bassett,
I approve.
Ms. Foss.
Yes,
Motion carries 5-0.
thank you. We will now move on to alteration addition for North Ridge Plaza Walkway Canopy DRB 000485-2022. Mr. Carstens, if I am correct, will be recusing himself.
I will, and then
Oh,
for the.
and
Oh, go
also
ahead.
Ms. Lippert will be recusing herself, correct? Thank you.
And I will make a note, I will be sitting out the next item also, but a member of my office will be sitting in my stead. So if you see somebody else in my place, he will introduce himself when the time comes, so.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to staff presentation for Northridge Plaza. Chris, we're not hearing you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The site is outlined in red on the screen in front of you. Diagonally off to the right, you will see William Hilton Parkway and the intersection with Matthews Drive, which continues at an arc towards the upper left-hand corner of your screen. The cinemas are the large square rectangle at the top left of your screen. And of note, Subway which was recently in front of you all, is here. The new gas station, which is not shown here, is right here. And you have across the street the new Parker's location in Sea Turtle Marketplace. Okay, the intent of this project is to renovate the approximately 15,000 square foot of existing walkway canopy and its wooden cedar shaped roof for the entirety of Northridge Plaza Shopping Center. The landlord intends to remove and replace the canopy's 4 by 10 by 20 treated fascia board walkway, as well as the tongue and groove 2 by 6 pine soffit. The cedar shake will be replaced with a natural slate, Vermont slate roofing system. Existing lighting and landscaping will remain. Existing building elevations will remain the same. Staff is motivated to see Northridge renovations proceed, but they must comply with design guide. Slate is not a natural material on the island and is not typically used on Hilton Head Island. For that reason, staff is recommending denial.
Thank you, Chris.
Well,
Is the applicant available?
Madam Chair, if I could just continue on through the.
Oh, thank you, sorry.
No, you're fine. Here is the survey. You can see the walkway that's to be replaced outlined in red here. Of note, the walkway in front of the cinema is not part of this application. Aerials of the shopping center. There's Home Goods. You can see this is the pedestrian covering that is to be replaced. Close up here on the corner. We're moving around the shopping center towards the cinema, and you can see the cinema sits right in here, and this is not, what's in the red X is not proposed to be replaced. Just some photos looking up into the structure from the sidewalk. This is the system that's proposed to be used. A sample piece was available for your review outside Town Hall. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Chris. Is the applicant available?
Yes, this is Tom Holtgren and Bill Goldsmith from Gator Investments.
Thank you. You have 10 minutes.
Okay, we're just turning the video on there.
Hi, my name is William Goldsmith. I'm with Gator Investments. I don't think that we need 10 minutes. We submitted an application to renovate the Canopied walkway. We like the selection of the proposed tile. We understand that it's not something that the design review board has received a staff recommendation for. We disagree in putting back the wood shake because for the past 20 years of ownership that we've had the center for, that's been a nightmare to maintain. it falls apart during extensive storm conditions or even regular storm conditions. And it gets easily dirty and difficult to clean. And it has not been as durable. And we just don't like the look either. We do want to renovate the rest of the center. We hope that we can proceed forward with this slate, which will be easier to clean. We feel is a much better looking, more desirable look. And there's not much more than I can say. It's not that complicated of an application.
Thank you. We'll move on to the board discussion. If you'll hang out for questions, we'll start with Mr. Brown.
Madam Chair, if I might interrupt for just a minute, I just want to
Yes.
be clear. Staff is not suggesting that it has to be replaced with wood shake shingles.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Mr. Brown?
Well, good afternoon. I certainly support maintenance at Northridge Plaza, and I would love to see even more redevelopment at Northridge Plaza. I can understand your concerns with the Cedar Shake. I'm not comfortable supporting the slate, and I read through our design guide again this morning, and I just don't feel that we're in a position that we can support the slate, but I certainly encourage the maintenance work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Molesky?
Yes, thanks. Before I share any comments, I just wonder if you could provide some clarity as to the scope of this submittal. Is there any painting as it has to do with the columns or the gable or the header or the body or the panels or the knee wall or anything else? Or is this strictly has to do only with the roof that runs around the perimeter?
The scope of the project was going to be for new tongue and groove ceilings and for new fascia boards. I think we have new columns coming in as well. I'm not sure. Certainly we were going to repair what we had to do. The color and the sample of the slate are shown. The other, we did not have a color for the wood. We were just going to keep it natural wood because we understood that Hilton doesn't want bright colors. I don't know if that answers the question.
Well, if I'm on the walkway and I look up, so I'm going to see brand new, call it 1x6 tongue and groove material there. And will that tongue and groove, will it be a cypress product that's stained, or will it be a pine product that's painted, or maybe you shared all this and I just wasn't thorough.
I think the application, Tom, can you help me? I thought the contract,
It's a pine soffit.
but it's stained, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stained. I don't think it's painted.
Okay, so it's going to just kind of be a light product, 1x6 tongue and groove pine that will be stained. And I don't know, did we see a sample of that stain, or it's just going to be a natural sealer?
All of that would replace what was existing there that's in, disrepair at this point. So it would not change the look of the underside of the canopy.
Okay, and then all like the structural cross members underneath, do we have a paint color for that? And then those looks like 4x4 columns, there might be 4 of them in a row there that are supporting that. Those are just going to remain but be repainted. And is there a
Mr. Molesky, if I might, it is staff's understanding that the only thing changing is the roof material, that the dimensions would remain the same, as well as the colors on the columns or any fascia board or the tongue and groove ceiling under the roof.
Okay, so something's rotted, they'll replace it and make it look appropriate, but they're not introducing a new color or a new stain. It'll just match existing.
Again, I'm not going to speak for the applicant, but that is staff's understanding per the application that was submitted.
Okay.
If you give me a chance, I'm just pulling up the contract that I signed. And it calls for the Vermont slate roofing system, 0.032 aluminum trim pieces, valley drip edge, counter flashing, flashing roof to wall. Obviously the underlayment on the entire roof. And then it goes on to say, obviously the wood shake removal disposal. Painted metal drip edge. So I'll have to pick out a color. I thought did we put in the color for the painted metal drip edge in the application or
I'm
not?
just gonna keep everything the same colors.
So the same colors as we have. But there will be a new metal drip edge. There'll be new remove and replace 4x10x20 treated fascia board. And there'll be remove and replace tongue and groove soffit 2x6 pine walkway. It does not have any painting on that. The
It wasn't really painted, it was stained before,
it was stained before.
just treated.
That's the extent of what the contract that I signed has. And we did send in all of our deposits because there's a long lead time on materials. And
So again, staff's understanding is that this elevation would not change substantially, save the roof being replaced by the slate material. There might be, the columns might be replaced, but they will be the same color. The fascia will be the same color.
yeah, I don't see that we have in our contract the column replacement, but we do need to change out columns. So I will add column replacement to the contract. But yes, everything will be identical. The only difference will be the slate instead of the shingle, as that shingle material has failed and caused a number of leaks over time, and the slate is a much more durable material. And it's the closest that we could come to the wood shingle. I'm aware that staff has recommended an alternative, which is a standing seam aluminum metal roof. And we certainly understand that because we're a Florida landlord, and you know that Key West look is common in some areas like Key West. But we think it's wherever we've seen it, it's not a good looking alternative. And when you're in an area where you have trees like we have, storms, we find that when the branches hit it, that the metal gets dented, and then you have a lot of convexities and concavities, and then it looks just like a crappy banged up roof. So we do not want to do that option. I don't know if who's ever on this call is aware, we've been before the design review board probably 4 or 5 times in the past 5 years. I've come up each time, and we've been summarily rejected with a lot of our shopping center designs that we've used for other properties that we own and operate. I'm one of the 2 owners of Gator Investments, and we own and operate about 200 to 300 shopping centers throughout the United States.
Mr. Goldsmith, do you mind if I let Mr. Molesky finish with his questioning if he's, or comments if he has further? Mr.
No,
Molesky?
Not
Thank
at
you.
all.
Sure, yeah, well, thanks for bringing clarity to the scope. So I'll just, keep my comments as it relates to the roofing material only. And, again, as a builder, I can appreciate, the benefits of a simulated slate product and the resiliency and all that kind of good stuff. But I think the underlying message here is that it's not necessarily in keeping with island character. And therefore, that's why I think the metal roof solution has been thrown your way. Perhaps there is a synthetic looking cedar shake product out there that would provide you with the same kind of maintenance-free resilience that you're attributing to the synthetic slate that would fit in more with what goes on here on the island. And I think that's kind of what we're tasked with here is the DRB is not necessarily looking at the merits of a synthetic slate, but just again, how much is it blend in with island character so we maintain that island character. And again, appreciate what you're doing on the underside there. Looks like an awful lot of rotted wood in there. So, replacing like for like, I think everybody's on board with what you're doing there. But I kind of agree with staff and as well that, we need to find a different material that perhaps strikes that balance between matching island character and, accomplishing your maintenance requirements. So again, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Molesky. Mr. Bassett?
So I'm probably going to go a totally different direction on the slate than others or staff recommendations. I know it's not commonly used in our market, in our area. However, what is very common as you drive down to 78, you've got Sea Turtle Marketplace, TD Bank, South State, all these buildings that have architectural shingles that are intended to mimic slate, and they're the same color as the slate, and it's an artificial and flatter with less variation look. And I think that natural slate would actually be more appealing than what's been approved on those buildings. And I think it gives a very kind of upscale appeal that might be something we should welcome on future projects. And I think, although some other things are more common, I think it is probably more in keeping with design guidelines and has a more natural appeal than just asphalt shingles that are more commonly used. However, with the slate and the weight and everything else, it kind of invites the question, what's going to be done to the structure that is rotting, to those columns that are, may not be sufficient to support the weight, things like that. And so I think we need at least a staff review of the replacement of those structural elements and what colors those will be done in.
Thank you. I looked up before we started this, there is a synthetic shake roofing. And to your point, Mr. Goldsmith, you have been in front of the board several times. And what our goal was to sort of keep the really nice, natural, very Hilton Head Islandish like look of the plaza and not bring in something very, very commercial. And I really like the look of the cedar shake. I agree with Mr. Bassett. The slate looks good because it kind of has the same feel as a cedar shake, but I think we need to stick to our design guidelines and not bring in a material that's not native to our land. I looked in the design guidelines on page 15. It says the use of wood or wood simulated materials is strongly encouraged. So I would definitely recommend that you find a synthetic cedar shake roof, and you'll bring that whole plaza back to where it wanted to be. And if you do, as you state, bring everything in identical colors, identical construction, same columns, but just paint them or repair them. I would be willing to approve something with a synthetic cedar shake roof. Does anyone else have further comments? Does anyone want to make a motion?
Madam Chair, if I might, I just
you.
point out to the applicant, at this time, well, Madam Chair, maybe, would it be possible to take a straw poll and see where your 4 members are on this? Or do you think that's necessary? It
Yes,
would,
we could.
thank you.
I'm going to take a straw poll for the 3 additional members besides me. Would you be in favor of making a motion to approve them doing a synthetic cedar roof and keeping everything else in identical construction and identical colors, but just repairing? If I could have a raise of hands.
I have to make a comment,
Yes, please.
Madam Chair. The applicant is asking for a specific slate product.
Mhm.
He's not asking, they're not asking for a synthetic cedar shake. I heard Ryan's comment that that the slate may look okay, and I don't disagree with that. I'm just concerned that it's not supported by our design guide. And if the application in front of us right now were for a synthetic cedar shake, I would absolutely support that application. Thank you.
Mr. Molesky, how do you feel?
Same thing, whether it's natural or synthetic, I think that's neither here nor there. I just think so it comes off as reading like a wood product, like you stated in the guidelines. Wood product or material that looks like wood is highly encouraged. So there you go.
Mr. Bassett?
I still feel that so many properties have been approved with asphalt shingles, and those asphalt shingles are either intended to mimic slate or intended to mimic cedar shake.
Mhm.
And both have been approved with great regularity, and I would be in favor of either approving the real material, the slate in a gray tone, or the true material of cedar shake, or anything that accurately represents those materials. So I would be a vote in favor of the application as submitted, as long as staff reviews the colors that would be, stained on the replacement columns and anything else. I'd also be in favor of a synthetic wood material that looks like cedar shake.
So as I hear it correctly, we could approve a synthetic cedar shake roof.
So, Madam Chair, and applicant, the reason I asked for that poll is just to make sure I understood exactly where the board was. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that you have the support among the 4 members at this time to get an approval for this slate roof. So you have a couple of options. You can let it go on to a vote and possibly get a denial. And as you know, if you have a denial, you're prevented on coming back to the DRB for a full year without substantially changing the project. Or you could withdraw at this point and preserve your right unquestioned to come back to the DRB with a different option.
Mr. Molesky?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, maybe this is a question for Chris. In the interest of keeping this project moving along, are we able to have a condition that if everyone were to agree to have approval, if it were a synthetic cedar shake looking material, and then have that actual color of that synthetic cedar shake to be something that could be approved at the staff level, since we know there's probably various shades of synthetic cedar shake?
That is up to you all. If you all want to delegate that to staff, we can do that.
If I might add, I would, Mr. Goldsmith, you've heard from us, so you know where we're leaning towards and what we'd like to see. It might be wise for you to maybe withdraw, come back very easily with the one change of the roofing materials, show us the colors, show us the textures, show us the layouts. Also, I would advise that you amend your your submittal to add that you're keeping everything exactly the same, just repairing and saving the same colors. But I will leave that up to you.
My questions are, first of all, I appreciate the feedback and I appreciate the straw vote. I understand that if it gets denied, that the property may just sit in disrepair for another year, and that serves no one's interests, including our own. We understand that there's always the alternative that we just, if it appears that we're not going to get consensus, that we can just put back what's there and move on. I guess that's another option. See, the problem that, first of all, the slate, just so you know, is much more expensive. And we're doing it because it's something that we've seen at some of the best looking properties that I've seen. One example would be at the Breakers Hotel in Palm Beach. Another one would be.
I'm going to interrupt you, Mr. Goldsmith, in that you've already seen that the board is not going to approve slate. There's one member who would, and the rest would not.
So you prefer that you prefer I not say anything further?
I would prefer that you stick to the issue. Do you want to withdraw, or do you want to move forward with us taking a vote for what we've already discussed we would approve?
So I should not talk about slate any further.
Correct.
And the only thing I should talk about is withdrawal or continuing.
Correct.
And if I continue and we get denied, then my only option is to do nothing or to repair what I have.
Correct.
Well,
And
I'm sorry, you could certainly come back as Chairperson Foss has expressed, you could certainly come back with a different material. If it be a synthetic shake, or I know you don't want to use metals, but that metal's an option. There are other options besides the wood shake.
And you could do that in 2 weeks with our next meeting.
I have a question for staff.
Yes,
Madam
sir.
Chair.
Yes,
Would
sir.
it be appropriate to give the applicant an opportunity to digest today's feedback and table a vote until our second meeting in March?
That is certainly up to you all. If you all want to table this, it's possible to do that. You can do it.
The
What's
last
the
thing I
difference
want to do is
between that?
discourage the applicant from reinvesting into the property.
What's the difference
Understood.
between tabling and withdrawing?
I think, Ms. Foss, the question was, what's the difference between tabling and withdrawing?
Yes.
You would, if you table something, you table it to a date certain. So typically that's the next meeting, and you take action at the next meeting.
And
If you withdraw it, then there's no vote. They would resubmit.
if the applicant if we table it, are they allowed to bring back a change at that specified date?
I'm sorry. That's a good, I can understand why you would have that question. If, in the interest of keeping this project moving forward and to support to the extent possible renovations at this, staff would accept alterations to the application for review at the next meeting. Yes.
Okay. To Mr. Goldsmith, would you rather have us, sorry. Would you rather have us withdraw or have you withdraw, meaning that you could come back with any changes that after you've heard our advice or what we would approve at any time you want or any board meeting that we have? Or we could table it and then you have to bring back in the next meeting all the revisions.
Well, here's the story. Work has started. And it's going to be starting on Monday. And they're going to get permits based on repairs, I guess, to the existing walkway. We can't keep the property looking the way that it is. Withdrawal is not something that makes any sense to me for any reason, because then they would have to refile. So that's not going to happen. Work is going to start on Monday. And if the issue is we can start with the wood repairs first. And I think we could then table to March 22nd, whether the finished skin will be the slate or the metal roof or the wood shake or the synthetic shake. The synthetic shake, in our opinion, because we've had samples of it, looks horrendous and cheap. So that's probably not an option. It's not an option. But
so if I could just add a clarification, DRB, to get the building permit to change the exterior of the building, you're going to need DRB approval. So you're not going to get a permit until the DRB has approved or signed off on the changes.
We currently have 6 members on our DRB. 2 of them are recused because they've had further involvement in the project. There's the 4 of us, and those are the only ones that will be voting on the project. So you've heard from the 4 of us, and you know how we are standing.
Right. So, but we can. I thought we were allowed to make repairs to the building.
You can make repairs as long as you don't change the what's out there, the finishes or the material.
No, we're just changing the contract that we signed is just replacing everything that's there. It's a tongue and groove soffit. So existing fascia board. There's no changes.
Okay.
So work is going to start on Monday. And then
So
the
will
only
you-
issue.
Mr. Golds, will you be able to bring back to the board March 22nd meeting a change in the roofing material and feel confident that we can approve it for you?
We don't need your approval if we're just going to put back that same crappy wood shake that you currently have on the building now, that we currently have on the building now. We would only need your input if we're going to put on a standing seam metal roof, no?
Chris, is that correct? If he just
Yeah,
repairs it?
if you're going to change the material that's out there now, you need DRB approval. Yes, that is correct.
Right, but if we put back the same material and the same thing that's been causing leaks for 20 years, then we don't need anyone's approval to do that. We can just do that ourselves with a permit.
That's correct. If you're maintaining it and just putting in new wood shingles, that's correct. No
And
DRB approval, no DRB approval required. So therefore, Madam Chair, I think we've given ample opportunity. You all have given the applicant ample opportunity. I think we probably need to dispose of this and take a vote.
Yes. All right, may I make a motion to, by disposing, am I going to table this, Chris?
Madam
Ah.
Chair,
Yes,
for the sake of time, may I attempt to make a motion?
sure, that'd be great.
With respect to DRB 000-485-2022, I move that the applicant may continue to move forward with maintenance work that is approved by the town of Hilton Head. However, we're going to table our decision on roofing material until the March 22nd meeting if the applicant chooses to change the existing roofing material.
As far as I understand it, if he has any intention of changing the roofing material, he cannot get his permit to move forward with repairs.
That is correct.
So if you would like to change your motion to state that he can move forward with just complete repairs with the exact same materials, exact same colors, etc., I think we can move forward.
That wouldn't require our action.
Mr. Brown, I agree with what you just said, but I thought that was the motion you just made, was to allow him to move forward with maintenance essentially, but to table it. So just to be clear, if he is maintaining it, which he could take all the shingles off and put all wood shingles back on, and that would be perfectly fine. It's the same material. So it doesn't, that does not require a DRB review and approval. So I guess the issue right here is, are we going to table it to the next meeting, or are we going to vote on it?
If it's okay, can I just clarify one thing that will make it very easy as to procedurally?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, but the applicant's out of order. Do we have a second, or will the motion fail?
I
I'm okay if the motion fails. I just,
Second,
Thank you. Is that a fail, John, Mr. Malinsky, or a second?
I'm second what Ben said, that they could move forward with the renovation, but not.
Are you seconding the motion to table it? That means Mr. Goldsmith can't start with repairs until he comes back to the next meeting and presents a new roofing material.
But my assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, is that repairs can be made regardless of what our decision is, as long as those repairs are made and they are in keeping with the current materials. And no
Utilizing the
material
exact
change can
materials
be-
and exact paint colors, etc. Yes.
So I don't think we even have to make any decision on that. That's more a permitting issue. But regarding any change of the surface material, the roofing material, I think it would be best to table that decision and leave opportunity for that material to be modified to a material that's more likely to receive approval at the March 22nd meeting.
Mr. Goldsmith. Mr. Goldsmith,
Yes, Madam Chair.
can you move forward with your renovations and repair work without touching the roofing material until March 22nd, when you present whether you're going to use the real cedar shakes or synthetic shake or tin roof?
Yeah,
don't
it's
think it's possible.
the exact same process.
Are you going to use the cedar shake roofing?
I don't know.
All right,
But
I would,
Madam Chair, please, it's the same exact process to change the roof. The only thing that changes is that when it comes time to, we'll just pull a permit to repair everything and put everything back the way that it is. We'll table the hearing for the 22nd. And at the 22nd, we can decide on what we're going to do on the exterior, but it's the same. If we decide to withdraw on the 22nd, we can still continue with our building permit because it's the same procedure. You fix the wood underneath, you fix the paper material that goes above the wood. And then at the end of the day, we can either put back the wood shake that we currently have, or we can put back a aluminum, or we can put back a slate. It's the same exact process. So we don't need to
Thank you.
decide on the 22nd.
thank you. Mr. Molesky, you're a construction man. Is that correct? Doesn't he have to remove all the shingles to put
I don't
them?
think so. I think the reality is this, that when you go in there, you know, you can keep putting Band-Aids on this, but by looking at the picture, that whole roof is shot. So most likely what's going to happen is all that wood cedar on the outside is going to come off. And then underneath it, there's probably, you know, 1/2 inch, 5/8, 3/4 inch, roofing plywood underneath that's probably all rotted and shot just the same. So the reality of it is the shingles will come off, the plywood will come off, they'll have to put down new plywood, and then they'll put down whatever type of ice and water shield membrane, and then they'll put down their metal, they'll put down their synthetic, whatever type of roofing material they'll put on top. And then on the underside is when they'll come in and put in you know, the 1x6 or whatever 2x6 tongue and groove they're putting in. So, you know, sure, you could go and do little repairs, but by looking at those pictures, I don't see why anyone would spend any money putting down, you know, replacing wood shingles when the whole roof is shot. So it seems
All
like
right.
someone needs to make a decision. We're either going to, you know, take this whole thing apart and rebuild it, and then it's just a matter of what are we putting on top? Asphalt shingle, metal roof, synthetic this, synthetic that. That's I think that's
Is the roofing material for the waterproofing that goes on top of the plywood, is that the same no matter what? If it's aluminum, slate, cedar?
And most likely the correct material would be some type of ice and water shield membrane that would go down, and definitely for the metal roof, and most likely for the others. I mean, you know, if you're going to spend the money on doing a synthetic slate or anything, I mean, you know, like the applicant mentioned, the material isn't cheap. So if you're going to spend the money on that, you're definitely going to spend a couple bucks and put the right ice and water membrane underneath, because that's pennies relative to the whole thing. And then it's the whole age-old adage, pay me now or pay me later. So it sounds like they're going to spend the money, do it right, then they won't have any deferred maintenance, and this will just be a bulletproof roof moving forward, for what that's
Right.
worth.
Thank you, Mr. Molesky.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you
No.
ask Mr. Brown to restate his motion, given the discussion?
Yes. Mr. Brown, could you restate your motion?
The wording may not be exactly the same, so let me remake the motion. DRB 000-485-2022. I move that the applicant can move forward with the preparation work to replace the roof. The actual roof material will be voted on at the March 22nd meeting.
And to amend your motion, Mr. Brown, thank you. Any repairs will need to be identical to what is existing. Any colors will be identical to what is existing, and you will pull a permit to replace and repair without doing the roofing material until we vote on March 22nd meeting. Do we have a second?
I just need to speak up here because I don't necessarily think that what you're sharing, Ms. Foss, is consistent with Mr. Brown is saying. I think, and please speak up if I'm misinterpreting both of you guys here, but what I'm kind of hearing Mr. Brown say is he's trying to help out the applicant so the applicant can keep moving forward and get this project done. So what he's basically saying is, we give you permission to go in, rip off the old roof, proceed with all the work that needs to be done in, putting down a new, subroof and get all that kind of stuff done. He can put down that waterproofing membrane and everything's protected in the meantime. And then that's as far as he's able to go until we meet again on March 22nd, at which time the applicant is going to give us another option. Again, there won't be slate because it's already kind of clear that we're not going to go for that. But whether it be metal, whether it be some other kind of option for us just to approve that final finish. And I don't know if that's what you're necessarily sharing, Mr. Brown.
That's correct.
That's
With
what I
respect to some
understood
of
as
those
well.
additional comments about the maintenance, I don't believe that's within the DRB's purview. If they're gonna do some maintenance that looks the exact same, I don't think they need our approval for that. So I did not include that in our motion.
But they need to pull a permit for doing that.
So if I might,
Please.
there is no, per the applicant and per the LMO, and there is no requirement from you all to give them permission to move forward with making these repairs. They're allowed to do that. So all you're all doing right now is tabling this to the next meeting. So that, you're giving them some time to reconsider the material, but again, the finished material, but again, they can make these repairs without your all's approval, as long as it's going back same for same.
All right.
And
Mr.
Madam
Brown?
Chair,
Madam
can I
Chair,
clarify one
I would
other
like
thing,
to,
too?
I'd like to amend my motion. I would like to table DRB 0004852 until the March 22nd meeting.
Thank you. Do we have a
Thank you.
second? I'll second.
Table what?
Okay, I'm sorry, hold on.
Uh-oh.
The issue with the March 22nd meeting is, Mr. Brown, you're going to be out, and we will have 2 recusals. So we won't have a quorum
Okay.
for this review at the March 22nd meeting.
Is Mr. Brown able to join remotely for that portion of the meeting, or is that possible?
He would need to join for the whole meeting, and he could do it remotely, but I'm just anticipating that he's going to be out. And we don't have a meeting the 1st of April because of Heritage. So it would be the last meeting in April. Is the applicant okay with that?
No.
Okay. Well, then the option, if you can't table it and don't have, because of you won't have a quorum at the next meeting, then you can vote. You can take a vote today.
The reason that the applicant's not okay with it is that, just to clarify one thing, we're going to change out to new the entire roof, whether it is the existing wood shake, from what I understand, or the synthetic, or the metal, or the slate. What I'm understanding is that if this doesn't get resolved today, then the only alternative, the only thing that we can do, because the roofer is Monarch Roofing, who's local, they are going to get permits, but the only thing that they can do is proceed forward with putting back the wood shake brand new.
Mr. Goldsmith, the other issue that's in front of the board is that you don't own, Gator doesn't own the cinema, and all of the those buildings, the surrounding buildings all need to be of the same character. And because, excuse me, the cedar shake roof is on the cinema, if you want to replace exactly as existing, I would approve that today and send you forward.
Listen, I understand, and again, I understand Hilton Head is unique and wants a certain look. So in order to make the best of the situation, is there a way, if I can convince my partners and my investors that they'll never go for the synthetic shake, I can tell you that. because they've seen the samples. If I can convince them to do this standing metal seam roof, is there a way to get at least an approval of that today as an alternative? Obviously, my number one preference would be to get the slate approved. I know everyone here likes that, but that doesn't sound like that's going to happen.
No. The problem with you just saying you're going to do a metal standing roof is that we would need to see it and the color, and we won't have that in front of us right now.
And can we vote to allow a change to standing seam metal roof for staff approval along with a specified number of board members that doesn't necessarily meet quorum, but has board input in the color selection process?
If you want to approve a standing seam metal roof in that way, yes, that works. Staff would, and staff would suggest that there needs to be a DRB member involved. Again, this is an effort to assist the applicant in moving forward with renovations. But that's a delegation of DRB's authority to staff.
I will make a motion to approve, and we're going to go on top of what Mr. Brown already said and change it to a motion for North Ridge Walkway Canopy DRB -000485-2022.
Madam
That the
Chair,
applicant, yes,
Madam Chair, this is Teresa. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
no,
If we could dispose of the motion on the floor, which is to table it, could we
yes,
handle that motion before we make another motion?
okay.
Madam Chair, if I may, I would like to rescind my previous motions.
That works. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm going to make a motion for DRB -000485-2022 that the applicant bring back a different roof system that is either a metal standing seam roof with exact colors and or keep with the cedar shake roof for staff approval with at least one board member present to see color and style. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Bassett. Thank you, Mr. Goldsmith.
Madam Chair, I think I have the spec for the standing seam metal roof, actually. If you need to, we could approve it now and then I could order because it's a 3 or 4 month lead time item.
That would need to come in front of the whole board and staff with the color as well. So please submit that to staff, and staff will then bring on at least one board member and we'll approve it as fast as we can.
So I don't have to come before the board, staff can do this?
Yes,
Yes, just in an effort to expedite.
Madam Chair, you still need a vote, though.
oh, I'm sorry.
I know it's
Everyone-
confusing.
Everyone in favor, raise your right hand. I mean,
This
Teresa, could you please
discussion-
call a vote?
Madam Chair, for discussion,
Yes,
did you say one member of the DRB?
yes. Would
This
you like
is-
it too?
This is such an important plaza. I would like as many as would be willing to participate.
So amended, Mr. Brown, we could
Madam-
have,
Madam
Yes.
Chair, I'm sorry.
It's
I'm
okay.
so sorry. We can't have more than 3,
okay,
because that would be a quorum.
okay.
I would support the vote if it included at least 2 DRB members and staff. Thank you.
So amended, we will add it to have 2 DRB members meeting with staff to approve the new roof.
I'll second the amended motion.
Thank you. Teresa, could you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Brown,
For the motion,
Mr. Molesky,
Yes, for the motion.
Mr. Bassett,
Yes.
Ms. Foss.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, Mr. Goldsmith.
Okay,
We
thank
will
you.
now, thanks. We will now move on to Lucky Beach Bar and Kitchen, DRB 000498-2022. Mr. Carson's is recusing himself from this project. Now staff presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hold on just a minute, please. Okay, the site is outlined in red on the screen in front of you. On the left-hand side, running diagonally, is William Hilton Parkway, and you can see Folly Field Road at the top of the screen to the right. This is the old Karaba's location. The project proposed enhancements to the old Karaba's building. These include: 1, enhance the architectural value of the existing building by adding wood siding to the 2 existing vertical elements on the west porch and north entry. 2, improve connectivity and visibility from inside by increasing the amount of glazing and doors. And 3, animate the exterior by increasing outdoor dining opportunities and providing activity areas such as a fire pit and gaming opportunities. Staff recommends approval with the following conditions: provide a back rack specification and specify the color of the rope in the railing. So here we go. This is the site plan, or I'm sorry, a survey. The old Karaba is right here, William Hilton Parkway and Folly Field. Pictures of the existing building that's to be renovated. A demo plan. This is a proposed floor plan. Furniture plan. So you can see the fire pit here. The roof plan. Proposed elevations, you can see the addition of the wood siding to the exterior of the building with the new canopy. Elevations of the building proposed. Existing's at the bottom. Again, proposed at the top, existing at the bottom. Colored rendering.
Oh.
You can see the large tree and that fence with the rope in it here. Sections through the building and construction details. Glazing, again, that rope railing. Fixtures, landscaping, proposed landscaping. Lighting plan. Again, this is a landscape lighting. Site details. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Chris. Is the applicant available?
Yes, I'm here. This is David Thompson. I'm the architect for the project. Thank you for the opportunity to come back. I think all of the board members present saw a version of this not too long ago. We ended up pulling the application because we at the time did not yet have the landscape portion of it. So I'm going to roll through and just focus on any revisions we made and comments we received from last time and how we addressed them. And then I'll turn it over to landscape to bring you up to speed on their end. So,
Thank you. You'll have 10 minutes.
okay, great. I'm looking at my screen on the side just as a guide, but if we could maybe start at A200, please, Chris.
Okay, give me just A200.
All right, so we have added 3D renderings of the exterior showing colors and materials. This does not accurately reflect the landscape plan. These are a collage of photos of existing conditions, but really more for design intent. But this gives you a fairly accurate depiction of down to light fixtures as well. Next sheet, please. Maybe we can go forward to the colored version of these. Great, thank you. So these two colored elevation sheets with the material swatches and colors were not included last time. So these have been added. We've also sent physical samples of the paint colors, the unfinished epay, and the rough sawn juniper siding to the staff office. So hopefully if anybody's interested, you've had a chance to see those. No design changes really have been made beyond just additional information that was requested. Next, please. So one of the comments that we heard last time was to restudy the brackets on the entry canopy over the front door. So we've increased sort of the heft of those and added additional detailing so that they're more robust. Next, please. Next. Next. Another comment was to provide detailing on this rope feature. I know one of the questions was the finish of the rope. We would be using just a natural rope, so nothing with any sort of dyed color. We also looked into the code applications that were brought up last time, and I'm still of the opinion this is not considered a guardrail by code and would allow for the arrangement of the rope as shown. You can see that a central portion of this includes a small epay countertop, which would match a similar detail in the next bay of the covered porch off of the bar. Next, please. This is the detailing for that drink rail. Next, please. Also omitted from the last submittal was reflected ceiling plan. So we are showing at the top of the page would be the existing covered porch, which currently has sort of a wood lattice application as the ceiling. And we are proposing that that be replaced with a painted tongue and groove beadboard. The color was included on the previous colored elevations. We've also added proposed ceiling fans and light fixtures as well as locations. And then as you move down toward the bottom of the page, you can see the new proposed porch for dining, which would have exposed structure under the shed roof, which would be similar detailing to the entry canopy, as well as the new proposed shed roof at the to-go order, which would be parking lot side, page bottom. So exposed rafter tails, exposed framing, but still with decorative light fixtures. So RCP lighting, colored renderings, elevations. Oh, another question which probably segues into landscape portion, but I know that the question was raised about the existing buried LP tanks where we're proposing new outdoor dining at the parking lot side, bottom of the page. And I'm sorry, Chris, to ask you to do this. Could you back up to our floor plan or architectural site plan? That'll work. Actually, demolition plan, I think even calls it out. All right, so the hatched area towards the bottom of the page is where their existing LP tank, a little bit left of that, are buried in the mulch bed and the planter bed. So we've worked with the company that has the existing maintenance contract on Karaba. They happen to also work with this client at Lucky Rooster. And we verified size requirements and clearances to go to an above ground tank, which would be located inside the existing dumpster enclosure. So if you don't mind going forward a sheet for me, Chris. Right, so page left, you can see trash dumpster, recycle dumpster, propane tank. There's also adequate room that we're going to be able to continue to have CO2 canisters, grease waste, everything will be enclosed in there with adequate clearances and no sight lines. I think that pretty well covers comments we received from the last meeting, as well as staff comments that I'm aware of from this submittal. I can either answer architectural questions now, or I can let landscape present their work, and then we can come back to all the questions, however you guys would prefer.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. If you could, sorry. If you could have the landscape presentation now.
Good afternoon. My name's Patrick Trissler. I'm standing in for Brian Whitmer for Whitmer Jones Kiefer. I kind of lost some of y'all's audio just a second there. Were y'all about to ask questions on the landscape, or I've lost their audio.
If you could forward with your landscape presentation. I don't know what's going on with the echo.
I can't quite understand you. I'm sorry.
The
You can
chair.
go ahead and proceed with presenting the landscape portion.
Thank you. Chris?
Yes.
What's going on?
Why don't you try to mute yourself
All right.
and then unmute yourself?
All right, how's that?
Madam Chair, this is Teresa. If you have do you have two devices operating right now? You'll need to mute one of them.
I lost my video, and then I got it back on, so somehow I probably got two videos going at the same time on my one computer. So I'll leave this one.
Teresa.
Now can you hear me?
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, that's better. Yes.
All right,
That's better.
thank you. We're going to let you go forward with your landscape plan discussion. Thank you.
Sure. Our goal with the landscape, as far as plant material goes, is basically to refresh a good bit of, utilize a good bit of what's already existing, and to more or less give it a little bit of a facelift in portions of it that have either overgrown space or just past their life expectancy. And so we are kind of keeping with the native beach palm vibe of the bar. We're adding two bike racks, a pedestrian connection to the bike path out of the front door. And those are just concrete paths that will basically match the existing path that's there. Also a gravel waiting space, we're calling it. There you go. And then the outside of the proposed covered porch, we are doing a outdoor dining porch with I think it was a 30-inch seat wall that will be tabby stucco to match what's on the building. And I think we sent in a sample of the cap, which is a old world tabby paver or old tabby cap. And we also sent in samples of the plank paver, which is a tabby finish. It's a permeable paver that will be used on the outdoor dining space. That's kind of the whole deal for us, to tell you the truth.
Well, thank you. We will start with the board discussion, and if you both would stay tuned for any questions, I would appreciate it. We'll start with Mr. Bassett.
Am I muted? Okay. I think the project has progressed very nicely and have no real questions about it. Everything looked fantastic to me, and definitely in keeping with the character that we're kind of seeking as part of the island character. My only minor comment is on that exterior east elevation, the kind of left side wall where the door is. It's kind of void of any ornamentation or lighting or anything, and it might help to either continue that roof line over across that section, possibly, or use at least one of the lighting fixtures that are used on the west elevation in a similar fashion, just to break up that solid wall a little bit. But really for that, I'll look to Annette and others for their comments on what they think would work well there, if anything.
Thank you, Mr. Bassett. Mr. Molesky.
I have nothing further to add. Nice work. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lippert.
Thank you. I agree. I appreciate you listening to the comments we had the last time you came before us. I do have a couple of minor questions. If we could go to A202, please. And I'm seeing downspouts shown in the side views, but not in the front views. And in the side view, so which would be, but let's just stay on this east elevation. Sorry, 1 second. But it's on the south elevation. I think we could see it. Basically, there's downspouts called for to go right in the center of those Ipe, the Ipe surrounds around the column. So I guess I was just wondering, is the downspout interrupting the Ipe drink rails at the 3 columns, or how is that detail working out?
So on the far right column, and we only have one downspout on that particular one, we will need to modify that particular little pedestal so that it's only 3-sided instead of 4, so that the downspout can come down the face of the column. And
Okay, and it's coming on the right or on the left column?
The right column in the east elevation, and they're shown on the roof plan as well.
Gotcha. Yes, I see that now. Sorry, I missed that.
That's all right.
Okay.
Thanks for the catch.
All right. And let me just flip here through my pages. Per the rendering, it looks like everything of the storefront, including the sectional rail and style door from Rainer, are all medium bronze, but I couldn't find that notation on A501. Can you just confirm that everything, including that sectional door, is medium bronze?
That is correct.
Okay. Going to A701. I couldn't quite tell because the pipe rail, it calls out to be galvanized frame paint. So I'm unclear what finish we're getting. Is it galvanized piping or is it painted piping?
It is a painted galvanized pipe.
And what color will that be?
Sorry, bear with me. I just hit the wrong button. Well, it doesn't look like we have selected that, but I think that if the board supported it, that the design could use with another pop of color, and I would propose using that same sort of sea glass bluish green as we're using on the ceiling. If that felt a little bit much, then I think white is probably a good selection given the color of the wall.
I'll just give you my, well, on the white, I think you're gonna have a hard time getting board approval. My opinion is that the ceiling paint is not appropriate for the pipe. I think that would easily be a staff level approval. I think it's important for us to know what it's going to be. Again, I don't foresee this as a stumbling block.
Okay, would the board support it being exposed galvanized? It would certainly be less of a maintenance issue than for the operator.
I think we'll have to hear what the rest of the board members typically, we don't tend to approve galvanized. I think galvanized piping isn't as shiny as a galvanized standing seam roof. So personally, I could be in approval. I could put my support behind a true galvanized piping, but I will let myself be swayed by the majority of the board on this one.
Okay, I would probably then back up to a bronze color, and we would attempt to match the storefront, and that way the rope would have a nice contrast against it. That would be fine by me as well. And then we
I think that would be very nice.
With that.
All right, I'm gonna just checking whether I have any other tabs in here. So since I'm on A901. Since we were just discussing galvanized, I think the light fixtures are all very nice, colors are fine. We already have the note about the light temperature, just the fan. I would also like to see that not be a galvanized, but instead either the old silver or the rust or the bronze, but not the galvanized. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lippert. Mr. Brown.
No additional comments on the architectural sheets. I did have a question on the planting plan. I looked at the as-built and it didn't show the tree or topography layers. And I saw what I believe were 4 trees shown to be removed on the planting plan. But can you confirm, are those trees being removed? Are they palms being removed?
The trees that we are showing,
It's on, I didn't see any tree mitigation, but it's on your planting plan. There are 4 X's for tree removal, and I was trying to understand what's being removed.
Those are palmettos.
those are palms.
Okay,
Yeah.
no additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I also agree you did a good job in listening to us, and the project looks great. I'm in approval to get the specifications on the bike rack, and I'm fine with staff approval of that. I also agree that the bronze color is probably the best for the railing and will look nice with the contrast on the natural rope. We'll need it specified that it is natural rope. And let me just make sure. That is it for my discussion. Would anyone else like to comment on the galvanized rail, what color it should be painted, or if we leave it galvanized? Mr. Bassett?
I would go with or lean toward the bronze, especially if the ceiling fans are modified to the bronze finish or old rust finish.
Thank you. Do you have any other further comments for the project?
I don't.
Mr. Molesky?
I'm indifferent whether it's bronze or whether it's just left galvanized. I think either is fine. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Brown?
I think the browns would look nice.
Thank you. Would anyone like to make a motion on the project?
I'll make a motion for conditional approval of DRB 0000498-2022 for approval with the following conditions, staff comments, as well as the note that all storefront is medium bronze. The fence, the roped fence elevation to be bronze with a natural rope. The fan to be revised to a bronze. And that concludes my motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Like to second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Teresa, could you please call roll?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Brown,
For the motion.
Miss Lippert,
Yes.
Mr. Molesky,
For the motion.
Mr. Bassett,
Yes.
Miss Foss.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We will move on to board business. Does the board have any business to bring forward? I would like to ask staff if there's any idea when we might start in-person meetings.
Yes, there is an idea. Now, it's not official, but I would say if not by the end of April, which you only have one meeting at the end of April, then the following month. But that's not official. That's just an idea, as you asked.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything to bring up? If not, Chris, could you give a staff report?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Real quick, 7 Target Road was a fence. That's Palmetto Bay Lodges, and it was a perimeter fence that was added to that approval. 5 Dunmore Court. This is there behind the on the north end, there behind Bank of America. It's not visible from the corridor, and they wanted to repaint their building, so it was done at a staff level. It was colors that the DRB regularly approves. And 2 Genesta Street was an equipment platform added to that building. And that's it.
Thank you. With no other business before the board, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everyone.